Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. It's Sunday, April the 14th. Sun has just moved into Aries, and we're going to talk about that a little bit over the next few minutes. All right, but the first thing I want to talk about today, apart from giving you my contact information in case you would like to have either a reading or learn Jyotish, is 508 525 0001. And I'm going to show the captions. All right. And again, you can contact me at 508 525 0001. Okay, 508 525 0001. Now, last night, as you may be aware, so I'm talking in real time, not when you necessarily see this, but between Saturday night and Sunday, Iran fired approximately 300 missiles and drones at Israel. According to sources that I've been able to see on the news, Israel was able to they claim to catch around 99% of those objects. The reason I'm saying claimed is not because I doubt them, but because it's not verified. It's not independently verified, so it's a claim. The other thing is that I want to look just quickly at Iran's state of mind right now, and you can actually get that from the chart. I also wanted to share with you, before I go into that, is I did have my interview with Alan Anand from Canada. He's an excellent Jyotishi, and he's written several books. And I was pleased to have the opportunity to interview him. So that will be available shortly. I need to do some editing on that particular interview, and hopefully that'll get to you very soon, very shortly. And I'll share with Sunil John's network and with a variety of other networks. And it's about Alan's book, Kama Yoga, Kama, which is about indicators for relationships and desire in the chart. So, so let's move back to Iran. By the way, you can also contact me at Gary Gomes, g@gmail.com. This is a current event. That's why I want to touch it, and also give you an idea on what factors can influence people's decisions, or even countries' decisions, to undertake something quite like this. So I'm sharing the screen right now. Let me just go back here. Share the screen. It didn't seem to. That seemed to take. Now, this is Iran's birth chart. Now, this was taken from a source called Astrotheme. Astrotheme is basically a derivation or a continuation of Astro Data Bank, which was a reliable source. But one thing I have to caution you about this chart is that of midnight time, this is noon time. Let me change this to midnight. So we're going to update. The chart. This is a midnight chart. And actually, this isn't too bad a chart, except for one glaring problem. So I'm going to give you like a quick analysis as I see this particular chart. And again, this isn't Iran's correct rising sign. So the ascendant is the sign that's rising in the eastern horizon when the person or the country is born. For some countries, we have that specific time. For Iran, we don't have that specific time. So if we take this as being 12 midnight, we have a Scorpio rising, which makes sense, in terms of how Iran views the world. Mars is in the 5th house, along with the sun. The Lord of the 1st house is in the 5th house. K2 is with Venus and is in Aquarius. So that's actually a reform or a revolutionary kind of a combination. It's detrimental. Venus K2 combinations are detrimental to females usually, but they're also Venus is in Aquarius, which is a dogmatic sign, is in a nakshatra called Sadabishak, which indicates that a lot of the issues that Iran has will be continuing in ongoing issues. So this is, and Mars is in Mars is in Purvabhadra nakshatra, which is essentially a religious nakshatra. It's very focused on victory and very focused on, it's a Jupiter inspired nakshatra. And if we look at this chart, Jupiter's exalted. It's just past its maximum degree of exaltation, but it's pretty darn strong. So one of the things that I will tell you that I dislike about Jupiter's normally a wonderful planet in Vedic astrology. One of the things I will tell you that I don't like about Jupiter is that it's very traditional, it's very dogmatic, it's very traditionally or even conservatively oriented as a planet. It's not a liberal planet at all. Okay, so that's something that I think I take exception with a lot of Vedic astrologers about, and that is it isn't always a good influence. It's located in the 9th house, which is considered a bad house for this particular rising sign, but it's also the house of religion or Orthodox religion. It rules, Jupiter also rules the 5th house, so there's this strong attribute of religion, and the moon is in a fixed sign of Taurus. So if we're looking at this from a purely planetary placement point of view, the 1st house Lord and the 5th is a lucky placement. The moon in the 7th in Taurus is a really strong placement for the moon, is moon's strongest possible placement. And Jupiter's in its strongest possible placement. But moon is in a fixed sign. So this gives a certain unwaveringness to the belief systems of the country. Now, if we go over here, we see the sun, Jupiter aspects the sun in this chart. Jupiter aspects the ascendant. So it sort of protects the chart. But also, let's look at this. So this is where the problem starts coming. Mercury is basically is debilitated in this chart. It's in its worst possible position. Does it gain any traction or does it gain any cancellation or debilitation? To a certain extent, because this Lord of this house is exalted, but that will make it more stubborn. Plus, the Mercury-Mars combination is a standard combination for deceit, for misunderstanding, for lack of discrimination. And when I say lack of discrimination, I mean lack of judgment, the ability to differentiate fine details. So why did they attack last night? Well, the ostensible reason was that their consulate was attacked. So, and they lost 2 generals in the attack, from what I gathered. Iran has been kind of I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it. Been kind of unpredictable over the past 20, 30 years. I have nothing against Iran personally. I'm just saying, but this Mars-Mercury conjunction is bothersome because it's a very political combination. It can indicate the presence of deceit, even though it's aspected by Jupiter, and even though Mercury is disposited to Jupiter. The K2 Venus combination can indicate problems with self-control, at least from what I've seen in charts. And look over here. If this is to be believed, if this birth time is to be believed, you're in a Jupiter K2 Mercury Venus subperiod. Now, so K2, so Jupiter's over here by transit. So we're going to look at the transit chart, and we're going to flip over to that in a second. If you see over here, Venus is exalted right now. Venus is usually considered a combination for victory in war. Actually, Venus is the strongest planet in the Vedic chart, barring the nodes and the sun and the moon. Okay. And I think one of the things that this combination does is it can create, with Mercury debilitated, passing over its natal position, and in pretty much the same shape, Iran felt the need to strike out. Now, I'm not talking about its interactions with any other country. I'm not talking about its interactions with the United States, Israel, anybody else. But this would be, Rahu would give it the indication that it could strike out and escalate and not suffer any ramifications. I don't believe that's true, but we're going to look at this chart. We're going to go back to the Iran chart just for a second. but that stubbornness is a very large part of Iran's chart. Venus rules the seventh house. It's in a stubborn sign. K2 is in Aquarius. It's in a stubborn sign. K2 acts like Mars. And so essentially this K2 subperiod is sort of like what I would call an impulse. I'm sure it was planned. I'm sure Iran has been funding terrorist operations against Israel and against other countries for a long time. I don't doubt that, but this particular combination over here does indicate that need for that conspiratorial nature, because Mercury is also the eighth house ruler, so they don't hide it very well. All right, so let's go back here. So we're in a Mercury subperiod, so judgment is a little bit weak or a little bit difficult, and Venus is also conjunct K2, which again, like I said, will give an impulse to strike. They're in a Saturn subperiod right now. Saturn, and I've always loved this expression. Saturn destroys what it looks at. So Saturn's aspecting Venus, so essentially any sense or semblance of self-control just gets knocked to hell. Now, again, there may be other motivations behind the strike. Certainly, the general tenor of what's happening in Israel and Gaza is problematic to large chunks of the world. But I think, given where we are right now, this will not be the end of hostilities. It probably won't be resolved directly, at least according to Iran's chart. I would say for about another geez. Until May 17th at the earliest. And what I'm hoping is that Jupiter's transit into Taurus will calm things down a little bit. I am a little bit more worried about violence or violent activities. And I am worried about escalation given when this particular attack occurred, because if we look at the chart right now, the moon is in Gemini, is the Lord of the second house, which is a house of death. And the seventh house Lord is in the 11th house. So we have a pattern for, and Mars and Saturn are in conjunction. Again, that's another, what I would call another stupid combination. The Mars-Saturn combination is really bad. The one hope in this chart is that Venus controls Rahu when it goes past it within a few days. And also that Jupiter goes into the 12th house, and Iran will not feel quite so invincible as they do right now. But there is an exalted sun right now. The sun's exalted in the chart. What does that mean? I'll give you an idea what that means in the base chart. But basically, when we have combinations like this, it does tend to cause either misunderstandings or calculated attacks. Okay, so it can be a little bit of both. Do they have any chance of winning this? No, because Venus is in the chart, is inside of Vishak. That's really the sign of a deposed king. Will it put the current leadership in Iran out of commission? It might, but it'll probably take a couple of years. The other thing is, so this Venus period is going to be very dangerous for the leadership of Iran over here. And again, keep in mind, these are only approximations. The other thing is, will it lead to a prolonged conflict? Probably, but all-out war, it'll probably be a conflict between Iran and Israel and Hamas. Will it spread? Venus is in the 10th house. It gives potential for that, but I'm thinking that cooler minds will prevail after around May 15th, at least from the chart. At least I'm hopeful of that. But we are going to see a lot of planetary changes in April. Sun's going to change signs. Sun already has changed signs. Venus will move into the sign within about 2 weeks. Mercury will go direct in about 3 weeks. It'll still be in Pisces, but at least it'll be direct. And Jupiter will change signs at the end of the month. So communications will be more tightly controlled, more tightly monitored. I think after April 25th, governments will be more oppressive, not less oppressive over the next few weeks until around, I would say around May 15th. And so the sun's now exalted, so the government feels really, governments in general feel much more powerful. And I think you may even see a shutdown of certain institutions, not universally, but certain institutions in the interest of security when Sun enters Jupiter's sign. Now, in Western astrology, we do have this interesting phenomenon of Uranus being in Taurus. So I don't normally use Uranus, but there are other factors that I do take into account, and that is Rahu and Ketu in these signs, which are changeable. They're called Twist-Shalva signs in Vedic astrology. Will change governments, will change leaderships, will change religious dogmas. There's one other thing I want to talk about that happened over the past week. And I said there would be some new information coming out about media. And one of the big stories of the week, which is really seems like a little story, but one of the big stories of the week is a senior correspondent at NPR coming out and essentially accusing NPR of being biased in its reporting. And I think that's, from what I've seen, that's essentially true. I think you're going to see more and more pushback. And the race is turning moving over to policies in general. Pretty much no government is safe over the next few months. Okay. And when I say no government is safe, I mean no people in positions of authority are safe over the next few months. You'll probably see disruptions from very small levels, even organizational disruptions, all the way up to governmental leaders, being either kicked out of office or major financial and political scandals being revealed. We have a political scandal going on right now. We have the Trump trial, which by definition is a political scandal. It doesn't matter how you feel about Trump or how you feel about whether or not this is justified or not. It's by definition a scandal. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in that court case over the next few weeks, whether or not there'll be a really rapid trial within like 1 month's time, which just seems like they're trying to aim for. If it gets prolonged past that, I would say that Trump has a very good possibility of not being convicted. But if they try to speed it up, and it looks like that's what they're trying, I'm not saying, if it looks like they're harboring no delays, they're not speeding up, they're not accepting his usual delays, then it'll be really, really quick. The other thing is, one thing I've noticed is that the current in power administrations are focusing a lot more on fear of what would happen if somebody else took over. This isn't true just in the United States. This is true in places like France, in places like Canada, in places like the UK is more of a mess than the United States is actually, if I'm honest, at least in terms of what I can see in terms of the political leadership. But even in places like Russia and China, countries that you would normally think would have a stranglehold on leadership are actually facing resistance they've never faced before. And this will all vet out, and there'll be a lot of communications revealed over the next couple of weeks with this Venus-Rahu conjunction. As a matter of fact, some of the more startling ones towards the end of next week. But I think one of the things is, with Mercury being in the state that it's in, it's easy to panic. It's easy to get really, really upset. Mars is going to change signs too, by the way. My apologies, I forgot to mention that. So Mars is going to tamp up the urge for more war, for more aggression. So that'll happen over the next 2 months. Okay. So in about roughly 2 weeks, Mars transitions into Pisces. And like I said, I think you're going to see some real shockers in terms of politics and even economic factors over the next few weeks. A lot of the economic figures that we're being given are not entirely accurate. I'm not saying that out of spite. I'm just saying that because I actually worked looking at economic projections, and I also know that they're readjusted and remodified and recalibrated every few months to get the real picture. So we're really not getting the real picture of what's going on economically. Things like unemployment rates are actually, they're what are called lagging indicators. So if an economy's in a recession, unemployment rates don't show up until we're somewhere down the lines. And so job growth doesn't necessarily mean you won't have unemployment. because there can be a mismatch in jobs, there can be a mismatch in economy. There are a lot of retail closures going on right now. That's another Mercury debilitated phenomenon. And so I think the economy, although it doesn't look dire to me, isn't quite as good as what we think it is. Plus the fact that we do have currently escalating oil prices. This situation with Iran certainly won't do anything to lower that, if we're honest. So it looks like it's going to be a rough couple of months in terms of economic projections and economic activity, as it hurts the working person, not necessarily as it hurts the rich. So I think those are the things I would keep in mind. This is not to scare you. This is just to prepare you a little bit, because there'll be I think some economic disruptions over the next few months. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, I'm hoping this attack from Iran is a one-time deal, and I'm hoping, but it's unlikely. You know, it's not really the way these things usually pan out. So let's see what happens. In terms of general behavior, there will be a lot of mixed communications, a lot of change communications over the next week. And also a lot of people really trying to get things absolutely perfect over the next few weeks. That's the Mars-Saturn conundrum. The Venus-Rahu-Mercury connection, expect to see a lot of panicking messages coming from the media about how the world will end if such and such happens. And this is coming from both sides. This isn't necessarily just the people in power. Other people are saying it too. You know, it's this kind of what I would call partisan fanaticism, which I'm seeing. So you can see it in the Republicans as well when they, when they want to replace the speaker because he's deviated from the unwritten law. You know, and you can see it in the Democrats when they say, "Oh my God, this will be the worst thing that's ever happened for democracy if such and such a person gets into office." Neither of these things are valid perspectives, you know, to be honest with you. But they're how they keep cranking people for involvement. The other worrying thing is Mars, at least Mars won't be aspecting Jupiter, so that's a good thing, at least from the chart. So when it transitions in a couple of weeks, it will only be aspecting Jupiter for about a week or so. That's good, but that week, especially around the third week in April, will be kind of dangerous. Third, fourth week in April will be kind of dangerous because it could trigger this large patriotic reaction across countries, and that's usually how wars start. I'm often fond of telling people that we invaded Iraq when Jupiter was exalted. So Jupiter is not really, no, Jupiter was hurt in other ways, but I think that this tendency to think of Jupiter as essentially a really benign planet is a misunderstanding of the way that Jupiter works, a really profound misunderstanding of the way Jupiter works. By and large, it's beneficial. You know, by and large, Jupiter's a beneficial planet. So let me get off that topic because I only have a few more minutes left and I want to run through the signs. Sun and Jupiter are in the first house together. That will actually increase religious perspective for this particular sign. Moon is in the third, strong desire to address home matters and Saturn, Rahu in the 12th. A lot of focus on financial gains and financial securities, but again, a lot of expenditures based upon let's say, for water damages, and we can't expect water damages because the Venus Rahu conjunction. So look for that towards the end of the week. For Taurus, Taurus has Rahu, Venus, Mercury in the 11th house. That's actually a good combination for financial gain. So that's actually fairly good for financial improvement. Moon is in the 2nd house. That's good. But the Sun and Jupiter, a lot of expenses connected with children and family, and also even with unseen debts. For Gemini, Moon is in the 1st house. The spotlight is on Gemini this month. So there will be a little bit more temptation to promote this sign. Mercury's in the same sign with Venus. It may tend to overestimate its importance, or it may tend to overestimate how much it can do. So just be careful, Gemini, so you don't overextend yourself. A side note, Mercury retrograde, extremely good time for finding bargains. Extraordinarily good time for finding bargains. The only thing I probably wouldn't recommend you do is to buy really expensive electronic things. Cheap electronic things are actually probably okay, and again, don't sign any long-term commitments. For Gemini, also some problems at home, but career will be good as long as you focus and focus yourself on long-term goals. You will get some financial support and some financial gain this month. For Cancer, Cancer is in, Cancer's Lord is in the 12th house. So again, a lot of expenditures for the sign. K2 is in the 3rd house, a lot of courage. Saturn's in the 8th house. So a lot of debts because of relationship partners, because of Mars, and also arguments with relationship partners. Venus and Rahu and Mercury are in the 9th house. Good for overall for luck for this particular sign. And career life will be a very strong focus for the sign. But again, don't be shy. This sign will have a tendency to be shy this month. Sun, Leo, has a lot of focus on relationship life this week. Saturn and Mars are in the 7th house, so there'll be increased arguments with relationship partners. K2's in the 2nd house. This sign does have some trouble making itself understood. Not really bad, but it'll be very intuitive. And we have Venus, Mercury, Rahu in the 8th house. This sign will seem to be very attractive to members of whatever gender they want to attract. Sun and Jupiter, are in the 9th house. Very good for luck for this sign. And the sign's luck will be very good throughout the month. And Moon is in the 11th house, so good for short-term gains, but heavy expenditures too. Virgo and Pisces are sort of like the center focal points of the chart. We've just come out of an eclipse on the 8th. We're still going to be feeling the effects of that eclipse for at least 2 weeks. Some astrologers say 9 months. And Venus, Virgo has this pattern in the chart. It tends to bring up unusual illnesses or unusual conditions, or it can make the sign feel a little bit depressed, if I'm honest. But it'll be very intuitive and very sharp also. 2nd house Lord, relationship partner will probably do well financially, but health of this sign, health of Virgo is a little bit challenged. But again, I wouldn't worry about it because the Venus cancels that debilitation, and you should be okay. Although there's usually some anxiety about health when Venus and Rahu are together, and Mercury as well. Scorpio, Saturn's in the 6th house, along with Mars, good ability to overcome enemies. You'll attract a lot of new people into your life. You'll attract a lot of interesting people into your life. Sun and Jupiter are in the 8th, unexpected gains from unexpected sources like the government or from teachers. And Moon's in the 10th house. This chart, this sign may focus on career a lot over the next month or so. For Libra, Libra has Sun and Jupiter in the 7th house, so there's a lot of focus on long-term relationships, a lot of focus on new business partnerships. The Lord of the 6th house will make this chart work, this sign work much harder. Saturn and Mars, very slow gain, but if you focus your energy on being critical of yourself and being exacting of yourself, you'll actually have a lot of financial success. Moon is in the 9th house, very good time for learning for this sign, also good for career luck. For Scorpio, Scorpio's Lord Mars is in the 4th house, so it gives some problems in relationship life. Venus is in the 5th house, so it can give unexpected love affairs, but I wouldn't engage in them. A lot of confidence for the sign this month. Moon is in the 8th house, so there'll be a lot of investigation behind the scenes. K2 is in the 11th house, so again, don't trust those friends. Sagittarius has Saturn in the 3rd house along with Mars. That makes this sign very brave, very solid, very forceful. Venus, Mercury, Rahu is in the 4th house, so there'll be some panic about maintaining authority or maintaining solidity, some fear that things are falling apart. Sun and Jupiter are in the 5th house. That's actually very good for the sign. It'll give it a lot of confidence. It'll give it a lot of luck. So it should be a lucky month overall for Sagittarius. Some changes in relationship partners or some changes in the way partnerships are conducted. K2's in the 10th. Again, not a lot of recognition at work and some confusion over direction. This is the United States rising sign, so this you can sort of like apply that however you like. Capricorn has Saturn in the 2nd house along with Mars, so it should give it increased financial wealth, especially through home projects. Venus, Rahu, and Mercury, a lot of ability to persuade people, but a lot of the gains won't be that long term. And Sun and Jupiter are in the 4th house, so good for business status, good for improvement of income. Moon is in the 6th house, so some spats with a relationship partner. And K2's in the 9th. Unexpected turns of luck. So this is essentially the commercial aspect of Capricorn being affected somewhat negatively, okay? For Aquarius, Aquarius has a kind of a Raj Yoga combination with Saturn, Lord of the 1st, and Mars, Lord of the 10th. It really isn't a formal Raj Yoga, but I'll take it. So a lot of career orientation for the sign, a lot of desire to work hard in career, a lot of ambition. It will get some money this month, but so around 2/3 of the things you set out to do will be successful. That 1/3 will be aggravating, but you'll get a lot done. Sun and Jupiter are in the 3rd house. It makes this sign much more brave, much more confident. Moon is in the 5th house, so it should give some luck in terms of past life efforts or past activities, especially things you worked on. So this isn't a bad week for Aquarius. Not particularly good for relationships, although you may feel more optimistic in those areas. Finally, Pisces. Pisces has Venus, Mercury, Rahu in the 1st house. And I think in particular, this combination makes this chart somewhat lucky. Relationship partners will be a bit difficult to satisfy or please. That'll continue throughout the next 3 weeks or so, but Venus, it'll always be able to bounce back. Sun and Jupiter are in the second house, very good for financial gains. Moon is in the fourth house. That's very good for like through children. Kate, who's in the seventh house, relationship partners will be a bit cranky. And finally, you have to watch out for expenses with that Saturn-Mars conjunction, and also stupid purchases with Saturn-Mars in the 12th house. Now let's go to the time-space map. I don't have a lot of time, I know that. And let's see if it'll behave itself. And of course, it won't. So let's do this. And we're going to go. Okay, so much better. So these are the points I think there's going to be some damage or some expenses over Hawaii and over the South Pacific and up through Alaska. We also have miscommunication coming out of Alaska all the way down the west coast of Canada. The government will probably impose some rather restrictive guidelines on the west coast of Canada. I'm not sure what those will be. There's a Jupiter line passing right through Nevada, right through Arizona, right next to California. Jupiter is really not well placed in this chart, to be honest with you. So Saturn still aspects Jupiter. So there will be some increasing restrictions, governmental restrictions on this particular part of the world, all the way down through Mexico. There's not a lot happening in the central United States, at least in terms of planetary lines. But there are some increased restrictions, Saturn-Mars lines, maybe some increased violence in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all the way down. It'll probably touch on Washington and the East Coast. And I'm sorry, and let's zoom out. And if we get down to Dominican Republic and Haiti, definitely some sadness in Haiti, definitely some violence in the Dominican Republic, and also in Guyana and Venezuela, and all the way down through Peru and Chile and Argentina. The Argentinian government has made some big changes over the past few weeks, and you'll probably be hearing a lot about that. There's a Venus, Rahu, Mercury Sun line running through Brazil. I hadn't heard about the conflict between Twitter and the Supreme Court in Brazil until recently, so I didn't know that. But that's actually a reflection of this. So over here, that Mercury line is over here. There's a struggle for power going on in Brazil right now, between essentially what I would call people who want to control the media and people who don't want to control the media. So now Rahu usually wins these fights. Okay, so I got to tell you, at least temporarily, he usually wins these fights. But basically, also the moon can give some changes in government in Brazil, in certain regions of Brazil. If we go over to Europe, the problematic places I see are Norway, Germany, Belgium, down through Italy, and all the way into Libya and into Central Africa, down through the Congo and down through South Africa. So this entire belt of land is going to be affected. Also, I can't ignore France and Spain and England because they're between a Jupiter and a Saturn line, so there will be increased restrictions on the governments, on the part of the governments there. Finally, as we go over here, moon goes over Saudi Arabia. There's nothing happening in Israel, actually, but there is a darn stupid Mercury line running right through Iran, and a descending Venus line running right through Iran, and also touching upon the Ukraine. There's a moon line touching on the Ukraine, and also a Venus line touching through this area. So expect floods, expect, I would say, natural disasters, maybe even some potential for earthquakes in western and eastern Turkey, Syria, and even some water problems in this part of the world over here. This is Kazakhstan, I believe, and Uzbekistan. Let's see, or I might have them reversed. There are still some problems in Pakistan and Afghanistan. There is a Jupiter line running through India, but to me that symbolizes more government control in the Bengal and Sri Lanka areas. Sri Lanka is not India, but yeah, you get the gist. And also a restatement of authority on the part of the Chinese. There's a Saturn-Mars line running right through China and right through Vietnam and right through Indonesia, down into Borneo. And we heard about the death sentence in the fraud trial I think it was in Vietnam, which is really amazing. And so that's one of the indications of this harsh tendency to punish people. The other parts of the world that I'd be a little bit worried about are Japan. Japan has a lot of activity, some potential for earthquakes, maybe tsunamis, floods. This is also true down here in Guinea. Not so true in Australia just because of the geography, but definitely some weird weather patterns in Australia. And finally, Jupiter's running through New Zealand, so Jupiter is going to establish some kind of temporary legal restrictions, I think. Okay, so that's it for me for this week. I hope I didn't run over. I hope everyone out there is happy, healthy, and well. These are temporary problems, but the next couple of months are going to be, they're going to be intense. So just keep your head up, keep your optimism high. Hope that our leaders aren't stupid and they can figure out easy ways out of these particular situations, or not easy, non-murderous ways out of these situations. And I'll see you next week. Please subscribe, like, and share and comment. I like to hear from you folks. And as always, I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. And be safe and good luck.